But their story didn't end there.
How could there have been only one? And he's back in business.
Is the worst idea in history of bad ideas.
Part 2 is the final chapter in the violent history.
This time, it's personal.
All right, you motherfuckers. I know you in there. Come out right now. Drop the motherfucking plans.
This son of a bitch doesn't have a dick.
He's got a fucking dick. He just got it tucked in.
Identify yourselves, motherfuckers.
I'm Jay, and this my hetero life mate, Silent Bob.
Don't tell me you guys have no idea there's a new comic book movie being made of the old comic book movie you two are the basis for.
That old-ass star-studded piece of shit, that movie sucked balls.
Suck asshole, too.
Your Honor, I object.
I'll allow it. That movie did suck balls and asshole.
We got 3 days to get to Hollywood and stop this reboot from ever happening.
Boys, I had a baby. Jay, brace yourself. You're about to meet our love child.
I think I'm gonna need to see a blood test.
No, Jay. This is my daughter, Millennium Falcon.
Can you take us to Hollywood with you?
Fuck no, man. It's a tough-ass neighborhood.
Either you take us to Hollywood, or I stab you both to death on my own front fucking lawn.
And on that note, we cue the music.
Fuck!
I'm glad you guys are smoking back there. I was driving someone about a week ago, and he took a big shit. You have no idea how hard it is to get the smell out of pleather.
Yo, Methods.
Let's do this.
Fuck!
Yay. It's Jay and Silent Bob.
I just found out I have a kid, but I don't know how to be a father.
Anybody with cum can be a father, but only love can make you a dad.
How you gonna talk about love and you flinging cum all over the place? That shit's unseemly, bro. What do you guys think about this reboot?
It sucks. There, I said it. And who's directing this shit anyway? Kevin fucking Smith?
Smells like this reboot went up in smoke.
Welcome to Revenge of the Welcome to Revenge of the Sequel. We're over here in the mines.
In the bayou.
Okay, that's a different place.
I don't know.
Can you imagine a podcast where it's a miner and then someone from the bayou? They're just trying to understand each other.
I like how we just generalized about everyone who lives in the bayou.
God,
and
yeah.
and
I
who
know.
works in a mine.
And our number one audience for this podcast, miners.
What, miners like M-I-N-O-R?
Yeah, miners. 12-year-old miners in the caves in Venezuela who are trapped. They're really the only people that listen to the podcast are the ones who have no choice.
Oh, shit.
Well, welcome to Revenge of the Sequel, the podcast just about sequels. We talk about reboots as well, and sometimes we talk to fun people. Sometimes we talk to
boring
people.
I guess it's just because it's
we talk to each other.
Yeah.
My name's Emmanuel.
What it is, it's Andrew.
Hey, I'm John.
And we are in the quarantine zone one more time.
Quarantined.
One more time.
You guys, they can't tell.
It's quarantine.
This is recorded post-quarantine times.
Post-quarantine time. So we're coming to you from
I know.
the PQ.
The future. This is the dystopian
November.
future. Yeah. Andrew just murdered a squirrel outside. We're eating it this whole month.
Squirrels.
Yeah. Our houses have a giant screen like on their walls everywhere we go.
I'm a hooker.
Oh shit.
My chosen profession in this new world is customer service. But yeah, we hope everyone is staying safe out there. This is the fifth. Have we already done it? We've done the 5th anniversary.
We have done the 5th
Have we done
anniversary.
one since then?
Yes. we
Okay.
have
Never
done-
mind.
Yeah,
then.
we've done
It's
plenty
old,
since
It's
then.
old news.
Well, especially because of the way you're releasing them.
And also
apparently,
depending on how you're listening to them. Maybe you listen backwards to forward.
Yeah.
Well, also, just like, I mean,
It's the beauty of podcasts.
because you said that our 5th anniversary was being released first.
It's
but
already out now. Yeah.
But right, all the other ones that we recorded before that were technically
Are coming out in different orders.
Yeah, exactly.
Who knows now at this point? We are releasing a shit ton of podcasts from all kinds of different time periods. So who knows?
We recorded one back in like 1876. It's finally going to hit the streams, the airwaves.
You're excited. Lost the war.
Yeah. Oh shit.
So yeah, this week is really special because we're not only talking about a movie that is well liked, but also it's a filmmaker who is a stalwart in independent cinema. But also it's a full circle because 3 years ago, we interviewed two of the people in this movie about this movie. I don't know if you guys remember this.
Brian O'Halloran and Jason Mewes.
And Jason Mewes, we talked to them, or not we, Sophia luckily got to talk to them. Or someone on our pod, my girlfriend. I don't know if we released that episode. We
I
did.
think so too.
Yeah, we did.
No.
Okay, well, hey.
Well, I don't know, because I was like, I would have remembered, but like...
Did you hear that interview or no?
No, actually,
Oh, shit.
I've heard that you have it.
We have it.
But
Yeah.
we have seen, like, I've heard the Jay Mewes interview, but
Yeah.
I haven't heard the Brian O'Halloran interview.
We are gonna release these. I'm gonna double check. We'll get an intern to look through this. We're quarantined. We have time to listen to whatever
You'll
600 episodes.
You'll email an intern somewhere.
But we did have Brian O'Halloran on. But more importantly, for this movie specifically, Jay Mewes was on the pod. He was super nice and super kind, and did talk about
a new Jay and Silent Bob.
Jay and Silent Bob. And I, luckily, or unluckily, we couldn't be in the interview, but Sophia went and talked to him. Sans watching Clerks or anything, but they had a really good conversation about sequels because I think at the time, Clerks. A new Clerks was also on the table.
was
a
in the
new
works,
Mallrats was on. There were so many things like being
Right, yeah.
made in this Askewiverse. What are they calling
The
this?
View Askewiverse.
View Halloo. That's from Mary Poppins.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what the hunters scream when they see a fox. Cool. But yeah, so this is full circle because now the movie is out, and I want you guys to talk a little bit about your first time watching the movie because I watched it on AmazonPrime.com on my TV like every other simpleton. But you guys actually got to watch it with Kevin James.
Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith.
But that's funny because that is a joke in this movie.
That's true.
Reoccurring joke.
You guys got to watch it with the Queen, King of Queens himself.
The Queen of Kings.
The Paul Blart himself.
Kevin James himself.
No, but you guys got to watch it with Kevin Smith.
And Jason Mewes.
Right,
yeah. Drew and I watched this movie back last October. It was actually a birthday gift for me to go watch, 30th birthday gift to go watch Kevin Smith.
Who gave it to you?
Drew, actually.
Why
I
you gotta
guess.
make it gay?
Yeah, I was like, thanks for...
But was it a
Thanks for
birthday
calling
gift?
this out.
Was it a birthday gift if he also went?
Yes. I mean, yeah, he was probably going to go.
Could you
whether
imagine
or not
if he would have went by himself? It would have been so weird.
You know what? I will
there
say.
was one guy right next to John by himself.
That's what I'm
and
saying.
He kept trying to talk to John.
Knowing Kevin Smith's audience, there were probably a lot of people who were.
Actually, I mean, yeah, well, we'll not get into that. So,
yes.
So we saw this, I think last year on Halloween or towards the Halloween date. Kevin Smith was having a road show, across the U.S. to show Jay and Silent Bob
Across
Reboot.
this great country that I call these United States.
Yes, he was. He was had a road show, and we were able to get tickets and watch the screening. And he had a Q&A afterwards, and it was pretty awesome. I've seen Kevin Smith do stand up for his own specials, earlier, like years ago, and to see him again and talk about the movie and the process and why this movie came about, which is basically a response to his near-death experience with a heart attack about a year or two ago. Was pretty awesome. Especially the movie. The movie is kind of a very positive and a very it's obviously like a cartoon at this point. It has Jay and Silent Bob in it. It's basically a remake of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, which it's
not that much updated either.
It's not, other than the actual actors and stuff who have been in the old ones that have aged, and they all kind of have very funny callbacks to their situation. They actually all acknowledge it's a very tongue-in-cheek movie.
Yeah,
it knows what it's doing.
How was it to have Kevin Smith there? Did you guys follow him back to his hotel? How was it?
The interesting part was him talking about it's how the movie was going behind the scenes. So Kevin Smith kind of provides a lot of that. He told a story about how Harley Quinn Smith was his daughter was the most serious actor in this movie because
she just got back from
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So
the great Quentin Tarantino.
Well, it's funny because she's an extra in that movie.
Well, the thing is
she's one of the Manson.
She's one of the Manson family. Manson family members.
I just think that's funny that like you're someone in the background. And she's like, "I've changed, Dad. I do good movies now." And I'm like,
well, yeah, and I think that's hilarious
Yeah.
though, because apparently Kevin Smith took that and he was like, I mean, you're acting really hard.
Use it.
And he's like, we're making a cartoon here.
Yeah, it's a very different movie.
Yeah, and it's really funny, and also hearing the process of Harley Quinn getting casted in Once Upon a Time, because he shared that as well too, was kind of amazing. Because he also said that like he doesn't want to, like he felt like he would be betraying his daughter if he, because at one point it didn't look like she was going to get the call, and so he says that him and his wife Jen Schwalbach, who is in the movies as well, she plays
movies,
Chrissy or something like that. Yeah. The movies, Clerk. She said that at one point their daughter was getting very discouraged because they hadn't heard a callback from Quentin's movie.
Yeah.
And the wife and Jen basically was telling Kevin,
pull some strings.
Yeah, pull some strings. Like you know Quentin. Quentin's your friend. You know Quentin likes you a
Quentin
lot.
likes Clerks.
There's a joke. There's a joke like that in the movie where he talks about nepotism.
Yeah. And, well, he actually did that in real life. He said
Wow.
that. He said that he's like, you don't understand. He's like, for an actress, if I call this, he's like, she's going to be crushed. And she's not going to be able to get anything else ever again after
Because
this.
she got it as a favor.
You're going to be treated differently on set.
Right.
I will say though that I feel like that is not that uncommon. Does that make
It is
sense?
not,
Like
yeah.
people are putting their friends and family in
Looking
movies.
at you, John Landis.
You don't even go that far back. J.J. Abrams does it he's literally just calling his friends.
Yeah, that's totally true.
To be in movies.
Yeah, but yeah.
So
So
don't
like,
feel bad about it, Kevin Smith.
So yeah, but she ended up getting the call and she got the role, and then the rest is history, and it's pretty cool. And he said like it worked out and everything like that, and he cast her in this movie, and he's like, it's really funny because he said he was like, this movie's a cartoon, and what she did was like very, very serious.
Yeah, it's definitely different in tone, but probably just in directing styles as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. And
Quentin
yeah.
Tarantino is very particular.
Right, but it's always really funny because like in the way Kevin Smith's the same way. He's very particular, but like he only likes using his friends, and his style is very
comfortable
loose
with,
and everything.
Yeah.
So those were the most interesting parts about.
Well, he also told us about what Clerks 3
Yeah,
and
he
Mallrats
pitched
were
us-
going to be around.
he gave us
we're
a-
going to be about.
He gave us a pitch on what his original Clerks 3 script was, and I don't know, I can't really remember too much about the Mallrats stuff.
Was it
but
fun?
he
Did you
say
guys
about
have
it.
fun?
We did actually, up until the only thing about, and again, this I feel like I'm attacking people who go to Q&As. Sorry.
No,
But-
go ahead. Yeah.
No, it's
I probably
just,
feel
this
the
is
same
just
way,
my
honestly.
honest truth. It's just Q&As for celebrities, or not for celebrities, but Q&As for anybody.
Almost
who's,
in general,
who's famous.
Q&As, yeah.
I don't know if it's in general though, because like if it was an amateur director, I mean, you wouldn't get so much of this like fanboyism.
I think it's just a matter of being courteous to the other people who want to ask a question, and then like some people grow up obsessed with these people, and so they just want to talk to them for 20 minutes. And I'm like,
It's a
bro,
gray
that's
area.
That's what the meet and greet
It's a
is
gray
for.
area. Yeah, I
Like this
guess-
this is a public thing here that people want to get more questions in. And
Go
people
ahead
want
and
to get
say
their
her name.
chance.
Say her name.
Her name was Rochelle. I'm just kidding. No, I don't know.
We don't know her
this
name.
happened. I don't remember when we.
They used to work the Comic Cons.
This happened at this always happens at Comic Cons, especially when people want you to go up there and sign their tit or something.
Yeah.
And then also this happened when we did the Lloyd Kaufman thing. Like there was someone followed him.
Well, and
like out of the theater.
Right, yes. You always got some eccentric people who are like super fans, which is cool. Again, like there's nothing wrong with super fans.
Right. The career was built on people like that.
Right, yeah.
But again, I think it's just a matter of being respectful and courteous to the other fans that are in the room as well. Because when she was talking, the one individual at the beginning, it was the first question. And it wasn't a question. She was like, "Oh, you inspired me so much," and "Oh my God!" And I was like, "Where the fuck is the question?" Like, and eventually the crowd started to like boo her, and like
That's the thing, is like you
move
turn
on.
the crowd against you, and then it just turns into an ugly situation.
Well, because even Smith had to tell her something. Like she kept talking over him, and he's like, "You have to let me talk. Like, stop talking."
Snap.
And like, oh man,
You
like,
got it. I will say that in a much smaller level, sometimes we do Q&As when we make movies. And our questions are very different. So a lot of times, they're like,
we're not like super famous. So I've been to a Q&A where someone's asking me questions on a short film. Like,
Yeah.
I think I did one a couple of years ago where you weren't there, and I had to answer like multiple.
You got to send John out because
Which
I'm not
is so
going.
really funny because like I had two films there with two different crews, and I think like I had to do a Q&A for one, and then I did a Q&A for your film,
Yeah.
or like the film that we worked together, not yours, but like I mean I guess it was technically yours, but and then like there's nothing no one's fanboying over our movies and stuff. Like
Some of the questions are mean. There was I
Some
went
of the
to
questions are mean. Like,
I went
it's
to
like-
one where someone said like, "Do you think you could have done more with that?" And I was like, oh shit, I'm holding the microphone.
That's when you give a one-worded answer. Yes. Next question.
Yeah, I mean that's with the bigger budget. Just kidding.
I'm just crying up there.
But yes, the Q&A about that part. I mean, other than like seeing everybody again, it's kind of like a bittersweet moment because you love seeing people excited for the people you're seeing, and interacting with. But at the same time, you, like Drew said, you just be a little bit more courteous.
And also, so the way they had it set up, he was doing 2 showings, and so one of them started at 7. And then it was an hour and a half, an hour to 40-minute movie, and then he did a Q&A after that one. And we had the second showing at 10, so it was at midnight when this movie ended. And so everyone is obviously like Jay and Kevin need to move on to the next city. Like
they're tired. It's a road show.
Yeah, and so I'm like, what are you doing? Yeah. Like, my God, like this is the worst.
So let me ask you guys this: would you have been more of a proponent to like a moderator asking a lot of the questions? Does that make sense? Like sometimes I like that.
That would have been cool, especially if he would have brought somebody that he knew, like someone from the comic book man.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be someone from the movie, like Chris Hemsworth or like Stan Lee or RP. But you get my drift. But like it could have been Jason Lee or something like that, or because I don't imagine Jason Mewes can hold up something like that.
Oh, like being the right. I sometimes think that works. Like if there's like a middle person asking the questions, we're getting a lot of insight, and they probably have good questions.
Yeah.
And then if they screen the ones coming from the audience, that's cool too.
To be honest, Kevin also talked about like 1 or 2 questions only because you've seen his stand up or his podcast.
He can do it.
He goes on tangents
stories,
and
he can do it on his own.
And it's not to say that I didn't want to hear that because I loved everything he said about everything.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we are again like we're limited questions, and this person is taking up
here. Yeah. And Kevin Smith is a podcaster. He does live podcasts, so it's very much there's that live element.
He knows how to
with.
handle a live audience, which is again like very awesome for Kevin Smith because he can keep it professional and he actually adapts to every audience, which is really awesome.
Yeah. But let's talk about him as a filmmaker first, and then we can really dive into this movie. But what does Kevin Smith mean to you guys?
I think we may have gotten a little bit of this on our Clerks 2 podcast a couple of years ago.
Clerks 2. I forgot about that. 2. The donkey.
I'm going to let Drew go first because I think for me it's a little bit more personal. But let me
before you start
calling me out.
Before you go first, we did try to get Kevin Smith on the pod, but because of COVID-19, it just like basically we got ghosted.
So
good reason too.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Smith is I put like 3 or 4 filmmakers into like my
your fucking list.
my fuck Marry Kill list. And
Spielberg.
And there's 4, so 2 of you are getting fucked.
Spielberg.
And guess what? I'm fucking everyone.
No, I guess it's just like the reason as to why I got into the process of movie making and being interested in that stuff and all that. Kevin Smith is definitely one of them, along with George Romero and like Robert Rodriguez and things like that. So it's people who started from nothing, and made something based on their sheer will and manpower and
credit card debt.
Yeah, exactly.
Credit card debt. Really.
That's what I'm saying. Is like they didn't know. Like, could you imagine if these movies had failed? Like they would have been
still
done.
be in debt.
Yeah, for sure. And so they all took risks and chances, and I think that's a lot of what Hollywood is because we get a lot of these safe projects, like
That's what Hollywood wants to be, really.
For sure, yeah. And I feel like we lost that somewhere in
it's gone
recent years.
I could go on a tangent, but I think it's gone now. Currently.
It's gone, definitely.
Yeah, well,
I think it's gone.
Well, we talked about it earlier, where it's like, how many things have they remade?
Yeah,
and now, like everything's remade or everything's inspired off of something, or let's redo this and redo that.
Or how many movies are even being made by people, with doing what they did?
Well, there's no
budget.
There's no mid-budget movies. There's either low budget or they're high budget movies in theaters.
And the low budget stuff will never be in theaters.
Well, and
Clerks was in theaters.
I feel like that's why he's able to pull this star power stuff, because people respect him for what he did.
Chasing Amy.
Yeah, well, and I mean, stars like Ben Affleck were like before they were stars, and things like that. And it's Matt Damon and stuff. Like he can still pull
and he's a
strings
cool
to get
dude. Like Kevin Smith is a nice.
He's very
guy,
super knowledgeable about a lot of the stuff that he likes, which is film and geek nerd stuff, and that's why DC always pulls him to do this. Warner Brothers has him do that.
He's on everyone's sets. He's on
like
the
Walking
Star Wars
Dead stuff, and Star Wars, and so everyone knows that he's one of the pillars of the nerd film community.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why when I first saw Clerks, I told John, we were actually watching Clerks yesterday, but I told John that I credit him for my modern sense of humor. I think watching Clerks really blew my mind and expanded on what humor could be.
On how vulgar.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Well, and I mean, everyone really talks like that, but it's more of like behind closed doors. And that's what I liked about Clerks is that, it's friends like working at a place and they're kind of just giving their real thoughts about what they think and stuff like that. But anyway, he's really he's a really big inspiration to me personally. I think it's again, I think what he's done for me is irreplaceable. And like without him, I wouldn't be into movies and film and stuff like that. And there are certain filmmakers that help usher me along, but I started around with Kevin Smith and George Romero and Robert Rodriguez and stuff, watching El Mariachi and Night of the Living Dead and Clerks get made from nothing, and just working with what he has. That's what I tell John a lot, because I mean, you guys work on movies all the time, and I help John, when John's writing stuff, like, what should I do this? What should I do that? I said, you work with what you got, and it works, and it's very unique, I think. And a lot of people take from what they've seen and stuff like that, but your path in life is very it's like a probability, the chances of someone going through what you've gone through is slim to none, because again, it's just so unique on how you were brought up and your values and stuff like that. And I think that's where he really shined, I don't know, with Clerks, and was able to take it to a whole new level, and that's why everyone still does want him. And I'm glad I remember when he had his heart attack, I was so heartbroken that I thought we were gonna lose him and stuff like that. So it's really cool to see him.
Instead, he went on hikes and he's fit now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's really cool to see him turn his life around physically. I think in a physical sense, where he's taking care of himself, and I mean, but he still doesn't change himself. He's still smoking a whole ton of weed, and he's got a modern sense of humor. Even with this new movie, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, there was some jokes in there that I was like, that was so creative and so funny that I'm surprised no one's ever thought about it. But he's just, again, I mean, it was a dream to watch this movie. I told John, I said, he had a heart attack. Like, this is potentially the last movie he could make. Yeah. So we needed to see it with him, and that's why I thought it was so cool or important to see it with him too, for sure.
John
what? No, I mean, that's literally
John 3:16. For God so loved.
That's I mean, I feel the same way. For me, is
John said that. John was like, it's a little bit more personal to me, but I said everything.
Well, the thing,
Andrew's crying.
Well, the thing about things like me, actually, I think because we lived in the same household, we were able to be exposed to the same things.
How did you guys see Clerks for the first time? That's what I want to know, because I feel like we kind of skipped it in our generation. This happened in the 90s. Like when Clerks blew up, we were around when these filmmakers were making their third or fourth movies.
So like I discovered Clerks shortly after I watched, I don't know about because I remember watching it. I don't know if we watched it around the same time, but like I remember watching Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back when it came out, and which was like, I think 2001. Yeah. And then I remember, talking about it at school. We were in middle school and stuff like that. I talking about it at school with a certain person, and I remember that person telling me, like, that's not the, have you seen the other ones?
There's more.
And I was like, I was kind of mind blown. I was like, what? There's more? And they're like, yeah, the first one is Clerks. And apparently it goes back, like, till 1993. And I was kind of like mind blown. Just like, well, they've been going on that long. And then, going back and discovering those movies, you realize that they're not the main characters. But Clerks kind of changed me, because I was at a time in my life where I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like, I was in the middle of, I think I had saw Jay and Silent Bob in middle school, and then give it a couple of years, I actually discovered Clerks, because, I couldn't, at the moment, I didn't buy stuff myself. I couldn't really go anywhere. I didn't drive. So I discovered, like, Clerks maybe right before high school, maybe coming into high school, around, freshman year. Because, I finally, went out and got a copy myself, which is the same copy I still have now, the 10th anniversary edition. And it was mind-blowing to me, because I didn't, again, like at the moment in time, I thought I wanted to do music like full-time, but I was kind of realizing that I wasn't as gifted as I thought I was in some aspects. And then really not so much the gifted part much the interest part, because I think the interest really goes a long way whenever you're good, like quote unquote good at something. Yeah. Like if your interest isn't in it, then your heart's not in it, which means like, you're not in it at all. And so I didn't really know what to study and this and that. I really didn't have a future planned out for myself. But I knew that I'd always liked movies ever since I was a kid. And even then, even to talking to people, I still do what I do now, like throw out random movie trivia.
Just without the podcast.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's literally everything that I'm saying now, but like we didn't have a mic in front of us at the time. So in doing that and discovering, photography and stuff like that, I kind of got a little bit more enamored with movies. And Clerks is one of the ones that kind of helped me latch on to like, okay, this is what I want to do. Like, this is what I'm really interested in. For a plethora of reasons, Clerks is a very simple movie. It's basically made in a situation where at the moment, and even now before watching the movie, I couldn't even comprehend. Like, when you say make a movie about your life, you're like, all right, what do I really make a movie about? But Clerks is really a movie about very ordinary people. Like, it's just people fucking around at work and, going off on tangents, talking about something that's super random. And there's a story in that movie.
Yeah.
And also, after watching the documentaries and hearing that he made this movie with his friends, basically just like on weekends.
Did it make it seem more attainable to you, the idea of being able to like create a movie?
Which was that and Dawn of the Dead, because Dawn of the Dead was the movie that I kind of had discovered a little bit, before Clerks. But that was already kind of like, on a movie high where like if they're just making this with their friends, like at night. I can totally do that.
It's weird how you guys both talk about it, but it's so important. That attainability is super important, especially if you're not like in a film family or someone who's already in the industry. Because I think when Kevin Smith talks about him deciding to make Clerks, he was inspired by Richard Linklater, who made Slacker and are just like, with his friends and doing the same thing and
random scenes and just cut together.
So it's really, and then I'm sure Linklater was inspired by someone else, like, and who made it feel really attainable. So I think these filmmakers are important. Not just because of the things they make, but the fact that they even made the things. Like the idea that Gareth Edwards made a monster movie for $10,000 and did the whole thing himself, or this person made a whole movie on the iPhone. I think it's a little different now, definitely, because we have the internet and nofilmschool.com, like literally is
everybody's a filmmaker now
to show you, just show this thing with your own thing. But yeah, all that's really, really important.
I think it's it's still a really, really awesome gateway to show you what you could do. Like, and again, like all you have to do is make one little small short film with what you have, and it can impress the right people.
The paths.
I also don't think I paid attention to what story was in film before this movie. I mean, I did, because I was brought up with like everybody else on Star Wars and Jurassic Park and big budget movies like Die Hard,
blockbuster, like movies, big roller coasters.
Yeah, and like I guess when in discovering Clerks, I kind of discovered the indie scene where like you don't have to have an action sequence to be emotionally invested or like
to be
emotional
suspenseful.
Heist.
All you really have to do is special effects. You don't need all this,
like the high point. The high point of a movie is an argument with your best friend, and that's what the whole movie's been building to. Well, and that's crazy to me. Like, and Clerks was probably the first time I discovered Clerks and Dawn of the Dead. I have to say Dawn of the Dead, because they're both movies kind of like, because Dawn of the Dead's on the opposite side where it's like this is actually action happening. But even then, on a small scale. But that's what Clerks is, and Kevin Smith is for me. And I've never stopped being a Kevin Smith fan after that. Only because like the way he writes his dialogue and the way he presents very ordinary situations as sometimes over the top, but also like very emotionally engaging, like the way a real situation would be, is unmatched. And I think you always see sprinkles. You see things that's come after him that's kind of like homage to it, and I feel like Judd Apatow is like almost like a second coming of Kevin Smith because of the situations where it's like idiosyncratic and it's also
working with his friends and it's just like Undeclared, and he did a Freaks and Geeks where it's very personal
also
and
the humor
super
too. The humor is
and
kind of like very similar to that, and it's pretty cool. But I think it all comes back to the everyday working man situation that Kevin Smith kind of like molded in Clerks, and that's what's had a lasting effect on me as a filmmaker.
It's so funny because
storytelling anyway.
Some of the comedy that he uses, people would consider to be immature in public, I think. And then when you get behind closed doors, that's the way everyone talks. And so I think I'm watching a sequence on our TV right now, but it's so unapologetically witty, I think, the way everything is presented. And I mean, even some of the like Fred Armisen's lines in this, the hater tots or whatever.
Fred Armisen is probably my favorite part of the movie. Yeah, to be honest with you, best sequence in the movie.
He's all, hey, he just starts throwing tater
Yeah.
tots at them. But it's I don't know. I guess I've seen Cop Out, and yes, I've seen Tusk, and I haven't seen Yoga Hosers yet. But I'll still watch the Masters of the Universe thing. He's doing Masters of the Universe for Netflix and stuff like that.
Yeah, I saw that.
And so I will follow Kevin Smith until the end.
Oh my God.
Also, because Kevin Smith
Until
also
he has a heart attack, or until I do.
Well, it's next week because COVID. So the end is next week for
also,
everyone.
the thing about Kevin Smith too is like he's had these, I mean, I'm not saying that makes him more admirable, but like he's changed with people like publicly too. Like there is a point he made Zack and Miri because that's what the world wanted of comedies at the moment. Like,
and it did well.
Right, exactly. And he did like commercial movies like Cop Out and stuff like that. And they were like
a little bit of Chasing Amy too feels like it was
Well, Chasing Amy still feels very genuine what it is, but like I'm saying, like Zack and Miri, like he had a public meltdown where he didn't really know what to do because like people weren't liking his movies and stuff. And then
now he makes his movies for him.
Yeah, now he makes his movies for him, but also like he's kind of a little bit matured. I mean, I don't know if because he started smoking weed. I'm not sure if that has a lot to do with it, but it's also like he's evolved with us, and he's also like he very publicly like grew as a person. So like now, at one point he sucked
taller.
He didn't like anybody because they criticize his movies, and like no one it's not no one likes criticism, but like
he was like responding to it,
right? Yeah, he responding to it, which is a very like I don't know. I think he may have seen this too as very like juvenile, like where you like slap back at someone who tells you your shit sucks. But now, I mean, he's like totally like
zened out,
about it, and all he does is just do stuff for his fans, which is what
he should have been doing. And I think I told you, like I listened to a really long interview with him while I was driving in Arkansas. This sounds like I'm gonna get murdered. But he for like an hour talked about his life on the Empire podcast and just talks about how he doesn't even think of himself as a filmmaker at all anymore. He considers himself a podcaster. I mean, obviously, like a father, whatever. But professionally, he puts podcaster above being a filmmaker. But he said it's all about evolving what he wants to do in life.
Right. Because it's not. It's like he's like a content creator.
Yeah.
Like it's just a bunch of like
It's just him.
Yeah.
Really.
Because again, he's gonna go into the Masters of the Universe stuff, which is a really big IP, and I'm so proud of him and stuff like that.
That's a huge part. I don't know. It's animated, right? Or what is it?
It's animated, and it's gonna be for Netflix. Well, and to me, like there's things that never die, like Transformers and Star Wars and stuff like that, and Masters of the Universe. In an age of reboots and redos and stuff, I was like, why hasn't there been something like that for like G.I. Joe?
Did they try to remake Masters of the Universe or something?
She-Ra. They did a She-Ra.
Which is okay, but it was interesting, right?
But it is successful. People like the She-Ra
okay.
show.
I didn't
sure.
know.
But it's a spinoff of He-Man.
Yeah, interesting.
And so, I don't know. Anytime he does something, I always find out about it or know about it, or he makes his own weed now and grows his own weed, and you're
we're gonna dive deep on this movie because it is a reboot and it's very aware, and it's probably the ultimate sequel to talk about because it talks about sequels and reboots and reimaginings.
Very meta.
But I will say I mean, I didn't watch Kevin Smith stuff for a really, really long time, and I think that the most impressive thing for me, along with Robert Rodriguez,
you're like Dogma. Alan Rickman, Alanis Morissette.
Not only the fact that they made filmmaking attainable, but his movies are most of the time all about the journey of these characters, less than the dramatic swings of these characters. Like Clerks is a lot of times these slice of life things, but these moments all built up to something. So the whole idea of like just enjoy the journey. If it means having conversations about Star Wars or having these little tiny moments in your life, like there's a beginning and the end, but he like I'm sure Linklater is focused on these kind of weird vignettes in these characters' lives, and they're very they're very interesting. And this is the movie we're about to talk about today is a very literal journey that you're meant to enjoy. But that's what I always think about with Kevin Smith is his movies are very much based on just enjoying the journey,
right?
No matter if it all happens in a convenience store.
They're all super
not.
Autobiographical too, which is really funny and like I think a little bit inspiring because off mic we talk about obviously we talk about movie stuff and writing scripts and stuff like that, and we're always trying to figure out how to inject our own personality into these scripts, like to make it actually personal. And Smith has a really good like idea of doing that. They may be a little bit too autobiographical for him, but it is a really good way of like how, because obviously he doesn't sell weed. I mean he does, but like in a legal sense or something.
Yeah.
But like he doesn't like he does obviously he isn't the characters he plays
anymore.
In his movies, but the movies are very very personal, and I think Jay and Silent Bob Reboot is probably his most personal film to date. only because it goes about
and then now like
it's about family,
who he
really.
is now. I think
exactly.
I will say this though. Before we talk about this movie, the only complaint about I love Kevin Smith movies, but the amount of people that tried to do exactly what Kevin Smith did after Clerks was successful was insane. I don't know if like you would read
you
scripts
can still see that,
with basically conversations like Clerks, but from someone else's point of view, which is fine. People were shooting like black and white indie movies in small places. And for me, I was like, that's great, but that's Kevin Smith. Like, that was very specific. And it's the reason why that movie was special was because it happened. And the amount of people that tried to do it after Clerks was successful was insane.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like,
who were they ripping off, though? Were they ripping off Kevin Smith or Quentin Tarantino?
I don't know. That's the only thing about it. Because I have seen I even currently have seen short films that people send me. You know, they're like, oh, I wrote this short film, or check out the short film that I shot. And it's Clerks, which is fine, but it's Clerks. Like Clerks, Kevin Smith did that already, and he did it better than you, which is kind of an interesting thing. And so, I don't know. And this isn't his fault, but I'm saying like he was so successful with it that people that's
the
almost
formula,
It's almost like a compliment to him. The idea that now people are trying to do exactly what you did because you inspired a whole generation of people. To think like that. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. I mean, because they all came out around the same time. I wasn't saying that as a joke too. Because it was like Tarantino and Smith came out around the same
and Rodriguez.
time.
Like that's why they're so tight knit. I think
Rodriguez didn't have a whole lot of dialogue in his stuff though. But like when it comes to like because whenever I first saw like I first saw like the 40-Year-Old Virgin or like or Knocked Up, and I was like, this is a Kevin Smith movie.
Yeah.
Like I was just or like at the time what didn't know about what Judd Apatow would bring to the table. I'm just this is literally this is a Paul Rudd version of a Smith film. That's what I would think.
I think the difference, and last night I read Pulp Fiction, and the difference is you talked about Kevin Smith making movies with his friends. Tarantino made movies with his friends too, but his friends were
studio heads,
not just studio heads, but like the best filmmakers of all time. Like in the first page of Pulp Fiction, the film is dedicated to like Ingmar Bergman, Federico Fellini, like they're all like and I'm like, all right, cool. And he has these hypothetical hypothetical conversations with the all-time best filmmakers of all time to inform what he's writing. And I think that's one of the big differences is like he's watched a million movies from his video shop job or whatever. So he
tries to Frankenstein.
He's like
flicks.
that, like the way Kevin Smith is about. That's his fandom, I think. Like Kevin Smith has all these different fandoms in pop culture, and Tarantino's like very much
niche
kind of guy too.
Yeah.
But cool. Let's talk about this movie.
Silent Bob Reboot.
The reboot. What do you guys think about it?
Drew, you can go first.
I remember seeing it. Obviously, the first time I saw this was with Kevin Smith, and it was really really cool. I think it added another level of I guess pleasantness, being able to watch it with him in attendance and stuff like that. But I genuinely liked it. I know some people are like, oh, again, it's a shtick when you get to characters of his like Jay and Silent Bob. It's not like Chasing Amy where it's very much more personal or serious or things like that. But I remember watching it and genuinely laughing at a bunch of the jokes and seeing things come back around full circle from his whole View Askew things, because he has a whole bunch of references like Justin Long is from like Zack and Miri Make a Porno, and you get characters like Craig Robinson he's not reprising the same character from Zack and Miri, but it is an homage. And you get Rosario Dawson pop in, and you get Justice from the first Jay and Silent Bob, and so I remember watching it, and again seeing like certain cameos like Chris Hemsworth, or seeing cameos like who's the other one? Fred Armisen.
God, there's so many cameos. And, Did you have a number? Does anyone know what the actual number is?
Joe Magliano, and you get and I remember it blowing my mind seeing it, and I knew what this movie was about too. And when I heard that it was going to be a reboot or a remake of the other one, I was kind of iffy because I didn't know how well he would play into it. But in true Kevin Smith fashion, he knows the industry and he knows the type of age of nostalgia that we're living in, where everything is rebooted or
I think
everything's
the
getting
tagline was like
remade.
it's the same movie over again or something.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, and so he really played it really, really well, and I just don't think that there's anybody out there that can write dialogue like him, where it's so relatable and it comes so natural that you can again see yourself like that. That's what I heard about a bunch of the reviews of our podcast, where it's like it feels like we're sitting there with you guys because you guys are talking about it genuinely, and it's mostly about how we feel, and it's not, there's no such thing as definitive or whatever, like what
there's
we
no
say
prep
is
that
true.
goes into this podcast.
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, exactly. We don't write it or anything like that. We genuinely just talk about it off the top of our heads, and it seems
Off
like
the dome.
It feels like that's what he did. Like, hey, you guys just talk, and I'm gonna film it.
Yeah.
And so it's really, it's just really refreshing to see him go back to his roots, because again, he's been trying to go a little bit further with stuff like Tusk and Red State and Cop Out and stuff like that, trying his hands at other things, Masters of the Universe and stuff. So to see him go back to the universe that he created, and I remember everyone freaking out about the shared universe thing for Marvel, and we had been exposed to that way before. It's just that people hadn't seen it, which is this View Askew universe where it's so much more heavily connected and stuff like that with these characters intertwined.
Also, but there didn't need to be like an Avengers type of crossover.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like,
yeah, and so and
even though there is like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back and Reboot are those quote unquote Avengers crossover
of the View Askew universe, but again, it's just really, really cool. And I meant Saban, like giving him trust and funding him and stuff like that because
Sabaro
film. because
they, pizza making fucks
because they know what he's about and they know what he can do and stuff like that. So I think to me it's one of my favorites of the entire View Askew universe because of how it points out that we're all not that young anymore, and how we all have to grow up sometime, and we all have to face the responsibility. So it's really, really cool on how he's able to put, again, like it's stoner and fart jokes and stuff like that. But and then
it's the same foul mouth stuff that you come to know.
Brings you back to humanity though, because these people are in their 40s.
But also, you get to like Ben Affleck's scene, which is one of the best scenes in the whole movie, where he really starts to like hone it down and talk to him and kind of change the characters.
The last scene shot and the last thing written was basically the best part of the whole movie.
Yeah, and it's and we didn't know if he was going to get him back or not because Ben Affleck obviously has gotten
blood.
Bigger, and the whole marriage thing back in the day where he was dating the Jennifer Garner, and she didn't like Smith or whatever happened between them.
Oh my God! And so much drama.
I didn't know if they were going to be able to put him in here, and he was a big part of the first Jay and Silent Bob. So it was pretty cool to have him back, and again, just a heartfelt message where he's got Jason Mewes' daughter, Ben Affleck. That's Jason Mewes' daughter,
the little one.
Yeah, and so it's really, really cool. Again, just to see it come back around full circle. If there was no other ones after this, like there was no, maybe scrap Clerks 3 or Mallrats,
which
I'd
I think
be okay with.
Originally, I don't think they were planning on doing more Clerks 3 or Mallrats until this movie came around, and they
because this one was supposed to be the capper.
Doing more.
I bought my tickets like months in advance for the screening just to have the opportunity to watch it with him, and just the flair that he brings to, again, just the indie filmmaking in general, because I would say this is it's a lot of cameos for sure, but it's still,
this is not a Hollywood movie. It's actually partially funded by the people you see in the end of the movie.
Like
it's a very on the nose, these are the people that paid for it
type of
but
thing.
It's a Kickstarter type thing where people bought stakes in this movie and bought it's definitely funded by the diehard fans,
right? And it's also an in-joke thing too, because apparently this movie got funded only because Kevin Smith had he says it in the movie, like I had a heart attack last year and I was able to con everybody into this movie.
You brought up
that's literally what happened.
You talked about we talked about some of the way he talks in the movie, but he also seems to, in dialogue and just overall, tends to make fun of himself a lot. He's very self-depreciating. In this movie, probably more than any other movie.
Oh yeah, fuck
ever.
Cop Out.
He literally has. There's two versions of him in this movie.
That's one of the best lines of the whole movie. He's like, "Fuck Cop Out, we're back."
Oh my God,
that is so funny. But even even after the whole Bruce Willis thing, he made up with Bruce Willis, and and stuff like that. So again, he's a very lovable guy. I think
he's very personal. These movies are personal, especially this one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And so that's why I still I can watch this movie I think once a day easily for sure.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and man, I love this movie.
Yeah, I mean this movie. There's not much to. I mean, I guess if you know the plot of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Jay and Silent Bob kind of figure out that they have a movie being made about them. They travel to Hollywood and they they try to sabotage
This
it.
one's a little different, though.
This is a little different.
You go to
Is-
Comic-Con or basically.
It's different but the same. Like they emphasize that it's the same, but they also emphasize it's different.
It's a reboot. It's very on the nose.
Exactly.
It's a
yeah,
reboot.
and they go into sequel, like, talk and sequel reboot talk on what sequels are and reboots are. I think that sequel talk that Brody, played by Jason Lee at the beginning of the movie, says is a great, it's a great. It's great commentary for this podcast because like we this podcast we thrive on sequels. Yeah, exactly. But it is true. There's a tendency to like just reboot everything nowadays. We just want to bring back old properties because everyone's into nostalgia and stuff like that. But this movie kind of does it again. It's very much on the nose, like what Drew said. It's a very fun and surprisingly emotional movie, especially when you get into the actual heart of Jay's storyline. Jay Muse's storyline in this movie, with his daughter and stuff. It's just a hell of a time when it comes to like turning your brain off and having like a really funny comedy. Like I don't think no one's made something like this in a while. At least something that I've watched. Maybe that's not true. I was about to say I think I would get the same type of entertainment watching like Charlie's Angels or something like that. But no, I'm just saying like because these are also like turn your brain off type of comedies, and Kevin Smith doesn't want you to think on this too much because it is technically, in his words, a cartoon.
Well, but also for his fans, you do have to think a lot about it because you have to come back with the references.
Yes, exactly.
And you have to come back to.
Well, he doesn't do it like he's not doing it to insult anyone either. Like he's doing it very delicately, and he has the heart in mind of his original View Askew characters, especially whenever they show up on screen, like Joey Lauren Adams as Alyssa Jones.
And they all do show up on screen.
Yeah,
I think.
Chasing Amy, and
all
they
of
do.
them.
Yeah, and then there's also cameos of
Jason
like the
Lee.
Clerks. The original Clerks.
They
people
turn
in black and white. Yeah, they turn black and white
as they go to that. Yeah,
and so that's really funny. It's and they have Chris Hemsworth. I'm about to do a cast roll call right here.
Oh boy,
let's go down the line.
Did you have it already pulled up and stuff?
I did,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Former AEW champion Chris Jericho's in here.
Right,
As
it's a
leader of the KKK.
Yeah.
So after obviously Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith play Jay and Silent Bob. You have Harley Quinn Smith as Millennium Falcon.
Funny.
Millie. Jay's daughter. You have Aprana Brielle as Jihad, which is her actual name in this movie, which is
Jihad.
Again kind of some weird dark
Old
humor
school,
there.
Yeah.
Some very Smithian 90s humor that he obviously doesn't give up because of the fact of just making people laugh or being outrageous, which is classic Kevin Smith.
I mean, the villain's Russian in this at the end of it.
Yeah, exactly. Shannon Elizabeth as Justice Falcon.
Justice.
Brian O'Halloran as Dante Hicks.
Brian O'Halloran plays exactly.
And
Grant
himself.
Hicks. Yeah.
Grant Hicks was actually one as a news anchor from Dogma that I guess didn't die.
Yeah.
Jason Lee as Brody Bruce. Joey Lauren Adams as Alyssa Jones. Jen Schwalbach Smith as Miss Mackenzie. Trishel Edmond as Soapy. Alice Wen as Xian Yu. Craig Robinson as a judge. Yeah, Joe Manganiello as the bailiff. Frankie Shaw as prosecutor. Wow, there's a lot of people in this fucking thing.
Yep.
Justin Long. Donald Rawlings, David Dastmalchian, who's I recognize him in other stuff. I just can't say his last name.
Is it James Gunn's friend, right?
Yeah. The Abracadabra and the
Ant-Man.
The Ant-Man.
This is the work of gypsies. He's also in The Dark Knight.
Yeah. Chris Jericho, Kate Micucci from Carfunkel Oates.
Micucci's.
Micucci.
John likes some.
Diedrich Bader, Melissa Benoist, Val Kilmer, Tommy Chong, Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Fred Armisen, Molly Shannon, Ralph Garman, Rosario Dawson, Adam Brody,
Method Man and Redman.
Yeah, Method Man and Redman, Jason Biggs, James Vanderbeek, Chris Hemsworth, Robert Kirkman, Keith Coogan, Stan Lee, Brian O'Halloran, Marion Gilgliotti, Walt Flanagan, Brian Johnson, Ming Chen, Chris Wood, Jesse Rath, Ben Gillib, Brian Quinn, Mark Burdane, and Jake Richardson. And Nick Fellinger from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back as the two people who bought weed off of Jay and Silent Bob from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. So all those people are in this flick. A lot of people.
It's funny because all the extras are like celebrities. Like
That's
everyone in the
basically what we
background
said,
and stuff, and you're like, holy shit.
And they all said yes. I think there was a huge thing where he originally did already have cameos planned. But after his heart attack, he had people calling him.
Let's milk this baby.
Right. Like, I mean, flip it around. Like people being like, "Hey, can I be in this?" And obviously, Chris Hemsworth was probably one of the biggest. You have a day to shoot.
But
this
he's like
thing.
obviously a fan of like he posted on his Instagram too. Like he was in Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, and that guy probably came up on watching old Kevin Smith films.
Melissa Benoist, who is Supergirl now, and she was geeking out on her Instagram saying, "I'm in a Kevin Smith movie, and I get to play riff on Superman, and I get to
There's a lot of goodwill, I think, for him, and this movie is basically all the favors he can call in a movie.
Affleck was the bomb as Batman, though.
He talks about being Batman too. I think, right? Like
it's a little bit of the dumb ones. I mean,
I love it.
So we could talk about
Word
movie,
bitch Phantom's like a motherfucker.
This movie may be a little too meta when it comes to things like that. Just
love
a little bit.
Nope. It's very meta. Yeah.
Well, because the Just Us League, and
exactly.
Ben Affleck saying like I don't know what Batman's names are. The Bruce Wayne's mom is, and winks at the camera like the name escapes me, and I'm just like, okay.
the reborn identity. Boom, Matt Damon.
Oh yeah, reborn.
I love it because every big cameo, they're all saying the titles of their movies.
Yeah, he says Chasing Amy too, right? Ben Affleck literally Chasing Amy.
Oh yeah, and they named their
Ben Affleck says a couple of them too.
Amy, yeah.
He says Argo, fuck yourself.
Yeah, the Just Us League.
Yeah, Just Us League.
I think there's and there's a lot of people who I don't think Fred Armisen's ever been in a Kevin Smith movie,
no.
and again he was like one of my favorite parts of the movie.
It mirrors the Will Ferrell role from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Marshall Willenhall.
They're all
That's
both
true.
like SNL alumni. And Molly Shannon's in this too. It's Molly Shannon. Yeah,
go fuck yourself.
Wait, no, I was gonna say Succession, but it's the other show.
There's a joke at the end of the movie where I think there's some jokes that they cut out, but the one where they say they're going to Hollywood and everyone gets excited when they're like Hollywood, Florida, and then when they say California, everyone's like, oh.
Yeah,
but they play all of the times they cut that joke out.
Oh yeah,
Fred Armisen, Molly Shannon, they all are like, "Oh, Hollywood, Florida," and I thought, man, that was pretty silly. But yeah, you're right. There is, I don't want to say meta, like it. I mean, it is meta, but they're
super meta.
I think
it's more of self-aware.
Yeah, everything is self-aware in this movie, and when we talk about it being personal, it is personal to not just on a kind of like on a subtle level. They will just say exactly
it's very surface
what they're
level.
going through in the movie. But yeah, did you guys like all the cameos? Did you think? Because here's the only thing I'll say about this movie. I liked it, enjoyed it. It was made for
the only thing you're gonna say.
No, I'll say more, and that's it. Bye. But
Yeah.
it's made for Kevin Smith's fans. It is not that accessible as a movie for anyone else. Does that make sense? Like of his list of movies, you would probably have someone watch Clerks first, or if they've never seen a Kevin Smith movie, this movie will probably be very not confusing, but just be and the whiplash
almost
of
like inside jokes.
Yeah,
they're like
the inside jokes,
yeah.
and then here's the next cameo, or this is something from a movie, and you're like, I don't know what that is, or I don't know, I haven't seen that movie.
I've never seen Glenn Ross.
You might experience some, I guess, like I guess I already said whiplash, but like that idea of here's the next thing, here's the next thing, here's the next thing, and you're supposed to know what these mean. But yeah, what did you think about the cameos? Do you have a favorite cameo?
I thought the Chris Hemsworth cameo was unexpected and surprisingly funny because of the way he's saying everything very straight faced.
He's like, please do not hump the
don't hump the holograph, you'll burn your dick off.
He seems tired, right? Of it.
And I love that because like apparently like he was. I think Smith was like on to that. Like he's like, yeah, do it. Like if I just hired you because of money and you're just like saying this for it, and it works as a performance.
And it was an interesting story. I think it was Hemsworth was about to go to Australia because he had just finished shooting all these fucking MCU movies, and he's like, I'm going to Australia, and they got him to do literally I think like
green screen
3 hours in front of a green screen before he jetted off to. I don't know, work out with...
To Asgard.
Yeah, to Asgard or something.
Asgard. The company of the Outhouse company is literally, it's ASS Guard.
Oh my God.
Asgard,
There's
baby.
a lot of little stuff like that in this movie. There's,
I think like the Crims has, I guess the Hemsworth, the Cremsworth. The Chris Hemsworth cameo is really cool. I think I'm going to dial that back though. And then the best cameo is Ben Affleck's
Damn
cameo.
it, John! You said 2 answers, and they're the best fucking cameos.
Probably.
And he took them.
Ben Affleck has been, if you know the
John's
history.
like all of them.
Again, I don't want to, because obviously this may not be
your top 20 cameos.
Yeah, I know.
This isn't like a. again, because we're not firsthand. This isn't a firsthand experience of what happened between Smith and Affleck, obviously. But
are you talking about Ana de Armas's boyfriend?
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, like
her man friend.
If you follow the
Grown
storyline of Kevin Smith and his, I wouldn't say his beef, but like his interactions with Ben Affleck over the years. After a while, they stopped talking, and so to see him on screen again and actually interacting with Smith and genuinely giving a fuck like with the performance in this movie is kind of powerful, and it's really
kind of giving a fuck. I would say
kind of giving, but also because like he seems genuinely excited to be there, like or else he'd be kind of. I mean, we've seen Justice League, so like you understand when Ben Affleck doesn't give a fuck when he's delivering a line,
and partially Ben Affleck. But it's also I think what's perfect is Kevin Smith went through this period of his life where he, I would assume, grew and matured. But Ben Affleck also has gone through that too. Like there's something to be said about his quote unquote comeback that's happening now from the back tattoo of Batman to. He's now doing like these smaller, more introspective.
It's almost like a second comeback because remember his first comeback was The Town and Argo and stuff like that
when he won an Oscar,
right? Yeah, and then and then he now I mean
I think he has a movie called The Way Back right now or The Comeback or something.
That's what it's called. Yeah, I mean, but like at the time too, like whenever because everyone thought like he's on the way up because he was cast as Batman, and then we all see how that it has nothing to do with him, but also like we all saw how that happened. And for him to come back and actually
kind of ruined his life a little mentally.
A little bit, yeah. Mentally,
he talks about that's why he didn't want to do it anymore.
Right, yeah, exactly, because of the pressure, and then it's and also just the way the studio was running that whole show.
Yeah, they own you for a year or two.
Right, exactly. And so for him to come back around and actually,
it's fitting,
in my opinion, go back to his roots, which is like, Smith kind of made him a big. Not that he owes anything to Smith. That's not what I'm saying. But also, like, it's nice for him to come back around and reconcile. And
they both have a very similar beginning in the industry, and obviously Ben Affleck he won an Oscar very young for Good Will Hunting. So
right.
It's not like
a screenplay which was I think doctored by Kevin Smith.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like they kind of started together, and like the super indie. I know like Clerks is like super indie, but Good Will Hunting was also one of these surprise. Movies that made them into the darlings they are now. But
that movie only got produced because Matt Damon said that too in an interview. He's like, we wouldn't have been
able
here
to do it,
if it wasn't for you.
Yeah.
And Smith was like, oh no, you're going to do it eventually. But he was like, being modest.
And there's something really special about them coming back around in this moment in their life. And but yeah, cool.
Yeah, bringing it full circle.
I'm going to say my favorite cameo before Andrew takes it. My favorite cameo was actually Stan Lee. Yeah, I think I know it wasn't technically in the movie, but there's something really nice about seeing him on screen for another time, but knowing that Kevin Smith has already put him in other films that he's done,
right? Yeah, and they were actually genuinely
friends. Yeah, and the reverence between each other and Kevin Smith, I think, embodies a lot of the fandom side of not just comic books, but the Marvel in itself, and the idea that anytime that Stan Lee did something nice for Kevin Smith, it was an extension doing something nice to all of the rest of the fans who didn't have access to Kevin's or to Stan Lee. I thought that was a really nice cameo, and they should have fucking Rise of Skywalkered it and just somehow edited into the movie.
Jeez,
used a lot of CGI, changed his shirt color,
deleted lines,
redo lines, and then obviously cut Rose out of the film. I'm just kidding. But Andrew, do you have a favorite cameo? It doesn't have to be your favorite because I know we talked about it, but just another cameo.
You already talked about all of them.
Okay, yeah, cool.
What about this scene right here? Always be closing.
Oh boy.
I would say probably. I guess since you guys took the good ones, I'll pick something else.
Yeah.
Justin Long.
That was cool. That was fun.
Well, and I just liked his character.
It's an homage.
I just liked his character so much in Zack and Mary because it's so funny.
Yeah.
And so the way him and Brandon Routh play their characters in Zack and Mary was one of my favorite parts of that movie.
That movie is probably one of his most accessible. Kevin Smith's most accessible movies.
That one I loved because it kind of reinvigorated the fandom again because it was like two worlds coming together, which was Judd Apatow and Kevin Smith, and so it was both the VSQ
Craig
universe,
Robinson,
but also you had like
Elizabeth Banks,
Craig Robinson. So it fit,
and you had like Seth Rogen, and you're bringing that whole the Judd Apatow characters,
Elizabeth
and they're like
Banks. And Kevin Smith has a good grasp on the irreverent to where it's really really funny, and it's about making a porno.
Well,
so
and
it's
that's kind of what I'm worried about because he told us what Clerks 3 is going to be about.
Yeah.
And so I was like, damn, that's Zack and Mary make a porno. Essentially, it's the same thing.
I think there's got
it's
also
about, it's
we haven't actually. So
It's the
We
story
can talk
of
about our
Clerks,
original
essentially.
Clerks
Yeah.
3. Let's have Andrew. You should explain this.
Yeah, and it's basically the Clerks thing on I make the movie where I work. And so basically Dante is living the married life and they own the Quick Stop because they both bought it and stuff
We
like that.
see
after
him in
Clerks
this
2.
movie too, like
And
he's
so-
part of it.
Yeah, he's still working at the Quick
Yeah.
Stop and stuff. And so it's his, and he's got a family with Rosario Dawson, who is a different character than this Rosario Dawson, Jay and Silent
That's
Bob
really
Reboot.
interesting too, yeah.
And so he's got a family and kids, and Randall, the other clerk, the smart-ass one, he has a heart attack.
Wow.
And so he starts thinking about his legacy and what he's going to leave behind. And he doesn't have a family.
That's really...
And so he chooses to make a movie about his life. And so he starts to make a movie in the Quick Stop about
boy.
his life.
That's even more meta than this movie.
For sure. And so I was like, man, that's what happens in Zack and Miri, where like they need money and they end up making a movie where they
At
work.
their work,
regardless
yeah.
of what type of movie it is.
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
it's
yeah.
a porn and it's a little bit more, extreme and
Yeah. And there's a love story there that you can have
for
too,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. And so.
Yeah,
and
I
so
mean,
that's essentially what Clerks 3
Yeah.
he said is going to be about. And I mean, sure, he probably might rewrite it and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But he told us at the showing that that's what it was going to be about. And it was funny because 2 months later, me and John saw the scoop on like, this is what Clerks 3 is going to be about.
Yeah.
And we're like, what the fuck? Like,
And
we knew this.
but his movies also tend to take another life as they're being filmed. Like
For
I
sure.
said, the Ben Affleck scene ends up like anchoring this whole movie, and not just symbolizes, but literally tells you what the movie is actually about. And that was added really late into the movie. Does that make sense? So we may not even know what Clerks 3, we may know what the plot is, but we may not know what like the story is. Obviously, it's very, very autobiographical.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for
sounds
sure.
like. So I don't know. I wonder if he's going to have a ton of cameos like he did in this one. And then
hope not.
if he's making it for a general audience or if he's making it for, again, like these road shows were really successful. I think last year, number 2 in terms of per screen box office, because it was only playing it like whenever he was there. Number 1, you want to know what number 1 is?
What?
Avengers.
Parasite. Per screen average,
Bong
Parasite.
Joon-ho.
Number 1.
Right, and the second one was Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right?
So I
it's
think
pretty
that's
crazy.
what's really
Exactly what you just said.
Yeah,
Sorry,
but
I kind of
I
blanked
think,
out.
Yeah, I really think it depends who he wants to make the movie for. If he wants to make it for fans, I think it's going to come out pretty similar to this movie. But if he's like, well, I want, because do you think there's more people who like Clerks than anything else he's done?
Probably. I think like Clerks is a different ball game because you have to kind of obviously be true to the fan base, which is like I think Jay and Silent Bob, any Jay and Silent Bob movie is catered directly towards the fans, really. Because you got we had Tusk and Red State and Yoga Hosers before this, which were the breakout things. Like it's Smith saying like, I'm doing something different and you don't know where it's going. This thing is like a full circle, like we were talking, full circle back around to please his fans. Clerks is a different type of ball game because I think you have to please fans, but also be a really good movie, and also not that it can't be a shit. Saying that like that makes it seem like it won't be a good movie, but it's like you have to appease basically both fans and casual audiences because Clerks is like a little bit more like what you said about what did you say was his most accessible movie, Zack and Miri? I think that Clerks is also like it's what Kevin Smith is at his core, like the Psych, basically, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I think a huge part of it, because I'm just double checking my work right now, but a part of it too is these movies aren't owned by him. I know he makes them, but they're not owned by him.
We probably should talk a little bit about
Harvey
that.
Weinstein.
Yeah.
But so Clerks is owned by Miramax, headed by the Weinstein Bros, and I think that there's a huge part of him that even if he wanted to make this movie, he can't without a sign off from the people who own the rights. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't think they own them anymore.
Not anymore. What I'm looking at now, I'm gonna
Saban. I'm just kidding.
Be in Media Group. Viacom, CBS, Paramount. So Paramount owns.
You have a Paramount Cup right there too.
Oh my God, they're here with us. So yeah, they're now a big part of Paramount. I don't know what their plans are for it, but I think that's one of the thing. And same with I think Zack and Miri, right? Like that was a Judd Apatow produced thing. So of course he had a say in the movie and the way it was going to creatively go. But this movie was basically Kevin Smith. They let him do whatever he wanted. So
there was no recut.
So
and
Clerks,
stuff like that. Yeah.
Clerks 3 seems like it's going to have some kind of creative oversight that he has to appease to.
I'm not sure because I always always assumed too that Miramax owned Jay and Silent Bob, and that's the kind of crazy thing. But now that like the company's been dissolved, the Weinstein company's been dissolved. I think he may have actually just gotten those rights back.
I'm gonna double check, but you're right. He does have his own production company.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But originally, even up to like 2016, he couldn't make a movie without.
Yes, I think he was very vocal about saying
the Weinstein
that
company.
Yeah, and he was very vocal about that too. That being said, I think now that everything's kind of fallen off the deep end for old Harvey there, I think he might be in the okay to make his own stuff, and he's very adamant about. I mean, he's obviously apologized about
dealing with
the whole. Yeah, I mean, he's very embarrassed. I think what he does now. I think if I'm not mistaken, is that he donates. Yeah, he donates his residuals from his older movies. Away because he was very embarrassed about all that stuff. You can't really not talk about Kevin Smith's upbringing in the career without talking about Weinstein, because Weinstein basically funded all his movies. It's kind of like a Tarantino-esque thing out there. But Kevin Smith, like everybody who, whenever it happened, was very devastated whenever all that shit.
Yeah,
went
he
down.
talks about getting a phone call from Harvey before the story broke. And Harvey dangled sequels to dog everything. He was like, hey, why don't we do these sequels? And he was like, wow, I haven't talked to this guy in 10 years. And now he knows that
he wanted
it was basically like he was trying to get support from all of his famous friends. And he was just going to give them whatever.
Well, also, Smith was right, too. I think Smith
said...
Kind
of fucked up.
Well, Smith said...
Right. He has COVID now.
Well, it's also Kevin Smith said, everything goes. I mean, no movie is worth that. All that stuff. Yeah, definitely not. So, he's... Yeah, it was...
you hear that? Fuck you, Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
We're going to take a stand against Harvey Weinstein around here.
Shit. But, at the end of the day, he did get all his... I think he got his rights back for most of his characters.
And it looks like the biggest thing that he has to... The only reason he would need a studio is for the actual funding. Because, Saban Films gave him that money, to make the reboot. So, whoever he partners with next will... Depending on who it is, gives him all the money, and then partially too will, want to know what kind of movie he's going to make.
Right.
But it's it's old. I mean, it's part of the reason why he didn't like making some of the movies he already made.
Yeah, definitely. Because after a while, if you've been used to doing stuff the way you do, and there's more studio interference,
it's still the business.
It's not fun.
The business side is weird because no one wants to fund your hobby if they're not going to make money from it. It's super weird.
Exactly.
But
yeah, and then that's
no matter how personal it is to you, Christopher Nolan better get that $200 million back for Tenet.
Oh, definitely. I think I don't know. It's a complicated thing because I was there's people like Nolan who, for some reason, every time they touch something, it just turns into gold.
We got to talk about Nolan at some point. I don't know if we have Dark Knight, but yeah, he's. I don't understand. It's not that it's bad, but it's insane.
Conform to him.
Yeah, and it's weird.
Studios he's almost like. If you were to kind of put a food chain in movie making stuff, Chris Nolan is at the top. And Tarantino, too. Tarantino is the same way.
Both of those guys' movies cost the same as Marvel movies, too. They're not it's going to be cheaper. We can throw them a couple... no, they're $200 million is a lot of money to make a original movie.
Right,
it's weird.
It's really funny because, when you talk to Tarantino's like, of course, why wouldn't they give me that much money?
Yeah.
But, Nolan, on the other hand, he's like, it's luck.
And you know what's really interesting? And maybe it's because Nolan has that proven thing, but I just read an article today that Paramount has passed on Martin Scorsese's movie that's about to cost $200 million.
Yeah, and Scorsese went to Netflix.
And Apple will be like, hey, give me all the money. But isn't that weird? Because Nolan doesn't have to, they fucking already give him that money. But Scorsese...
Warner Brothers is half of our budget goes to you, Nolan.
Yeah, but Scorsese has to go around not begging, but has to be like, hey, we need the funding, and it's weird. And Scorsese seems like the greatest living film, legend still producing movies who's been around since the 60s.
Right.
Weird. Anyways,
how much money did The Irishman make?
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I know how many hours I spent. If time is money,
half a day
sucked me dry. Yeah,
exactly.
Anything else about Jay and Silent Bob? I feel like we talked a lot about Kevin Smith, but the movie's actual plot and story is a pretty standard travel.
Jay and Silent Bob.
Journey, travel.
We didn't do a Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back episode, but pretty much the plot is the same. And I think what we talked about here are really the heart of what the movie is. It's really about finding appreciation after you have a child, which I can't relate to, but like it's also a very good movie about like basically parenting and about how when, if life presents you with this opportunity, that it's not about you anymore. And I think it's a very good message, and it's a very mature message for, a guy who used to make movies about dick and fart jokes. And
yeah. And he still makes movies about dick and fart jokes,
but like it just has a little bit more heart to it.
It's definitely sprinkled with a ton of hijinks and cameos and self-depreciation and all of the things that you probably get in Kevin Smith movies.
Yeah. Classic Smith movie.
Yeah, to the point of having, conversations about things that he went through. And I think he also gives that opportunity to the people doing the cameos, like Ben Affleck. We already talked about him talking about Batman a little bit. Or, he gives that opportunity for other actors to comment on their careers as well, which is really rare I don't even know what that's like. I can't really give another movie or another filmmaker who can do that, other than like now we're seeing things happen with like Deadpool breaking the fourth wall and talking about Marvel and stuff. But it is a very unique thing to Kevin Smith. To make a movie about making movies.
Yeah, I mean,
in a very literal way. Not even a movie about making movies, a movie about him making movies, which is interesting.
And we'll get that in Clerks 3, I'm assuming, possibly. But yeah, those are my final thoughts, I guess. Like, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. I mean, if you're a fan of Kevin Smith or if you're a fan of like just kind of stupid 90s stoner comedies, this will kind of do it.
And it's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime.
Super accessible and easy to watch.
Yeah, it's easy to watch. It's actually a very rewatchable flick because of the amount of cameos, and it's a feel-good movie. Like, it's not a it's not a downer.
It's
like,
optimistic it's pretty optimistic
right,
as a movie.
It's towards the very end you get a very, very optimistic message. You get a very positive experience of the whole thing. I would say, go out and watch it if you're a fan of Kevin Smith or just comedy movies in general. It might make you laugh. I thought it was great. I'm excited for Clerks 3. I'm excited for Twilight of the Mallrats, as he calls it.
Oh boy.
I can't wait to see more in View Askew, and if he wants to cap it off, he should technically.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm excited to see more.
Huh? I'm just kidding. I mean, I think I pretty much said it when I first when I talked about it first on my first impressions. I think it's a really cool. We added it to the View Askew collection, and View Askew is one of those. The universe is one of those things that we'll always come back to, like the way we go back and rewatch, movies like Alien and Predator and Terminator and all these greatest movies of all time. There are some that are personal to me specifically, and the View Askew universe will always be there, more so than his other stuff like Cop Out and Red State and stuff like that, just because of how it touched me personally at the time of my life when I was younger and I didn't know what movies could be and stuff like that. And so it'll always be, I marathon these movies where it's like, hey, let's watch all the Harry Potters, or let's watch all the Star Wars, or all the MCU movies, or all the DC movies, whatever you want to think. Say these will always be one of those movies that I come back to. So I'm glad that he made it for sure. And again, even if the other ones don't get made, or he can't find funding, or whatever happens, all this COVID stuff stops movie making or whatever, I think it's a really cool bookend piece for everything he's built so far, and I guess it just cements his legacy on like what he did and what the levels he got to. He shouldn't be able to get through Ben Affleck or Chris Hemsworth or Fred Armisen or people like that in his movies had Clerks not been successful. So I think it's really, really it's gonna be one of my favorites for a long time.
Yeah. And in a way, we're all Kevin Smiths because we have a podcast.
That's totally true. We're more Kevin Smith than
we're too fat to fly.
Oh no, come on.
He mentions that in this one.
But yeah, that's nice. Yeah, Kevin Smith. How exciting. There was something I wanted to say, but I totally forgot what that is. Well, hey, what do you guys have to plug?
Nothing. I'm furloughed. I'm just kidding.
Cool.
I'm just kidding. Kevin Smith wrote a lot of comic books also.
That's true. He does.
As soon as the comic book shop is open, you're more than welcome to come by and
Jay and Silent Bob have cameos and things. They're in Scream.
They're in Degrassi.
They're in Degrassi.
Scream, yeah.
I think they're in The Flash. right? Yeah,
They
they're in the
are,
Flash.
yeah,
Yeah,
in some capacity.
Weird,
That's so funny.
interesting
Yeah.
way. So that's so you'll see them sometimes in other things too.
Yeah, so like I listen to all your Dolphin Pod podcasts, listen to The Revenge of the Sequel.
Oh boy, everything's out. I think
everything's out, really.
Plug all of Kevin Smith's podcasts.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, listen to
go listen to Kevin Smith.
Listen to the Smodcast stuff back in the day.
He probably releases. He's the only podcast that probably releases more than we do at 5 a week because he has so many podcasts.
Stuff back in the day. I mean, yeah, he was one of the original influences for this podcast. That
Yeah.
and like Mystery Science Theater and stuff. So like, it's pretty cool to have to plug his stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to plug a new season of our buddies Director Showdown, which is coming pretty soon, which is really cool. It's
Or it
Taika-
might be over by the time this comes out.
Possibly,
Who knows?
yeah. Oh, well, even then, and then if that case, go look on iTunes and
Yeah.
go backlog those episodes. Taika Waititi versus Edgar Wright,
Ooh,
which is
very
a very
good.
exciting.
Oh my god, that's they're both good. They're so good.
They're both very good.
Taika.
And then Cover Stories, the Cover Stories podcast. If you like music, our buddy Zach runs that podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously stay safe. Wash your hands. Cover your mouth
and your butts.
And your butts. Don't forget that butts.
Yeah, fingers in your butts.
Don't forget those butts.
Get
guys.
up there. Some people say that germs can live all the way up to the male G spot.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take that as fact. And
fact.
listen to Delphin.
It's not a fiction.
Don't let that happen, guys.
Guys, thanks so much for listening. Support the pod. Go to patreon.com/DelphinPod. You can listen to all these episodes early as well as exclusive content that no one else will hear except for our Patreon subscribers. If you don't want to be on Patreon, you can also support us by going to tpublic.com and typing in Delphin Pod and buying a shirt or some kind of merch. But yeah, there's all kinds of shows. Countdown to Infinity is out right now. Countdown to Skywalker is out with Mandalorian and soon Clone Wars. And I gotta say, it's kind of insane, but Countdown to Skywalker we haven't had out in a while, and now it's out again. Already back in the top 100 film history podcast.
Really?
On iTunes. And it's kind of one that we don't do that often, which is really weird to me.
Well, we kind of ran out of things to actually know. I know the exact reason why we stopped, but like,
yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well, it's just because of like Clone Wars and like and video games, which we plan to do episodes of that.
We'll record it soon.
Those are different things to consume than a show or
Admiral,
a movie. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
we're talking about the books and stuff. But yeah, you're right. And I think that after
they're harder to consume.
And after
I would
Rise
say
of Skywalker, I can only speak personally. It was a little hard to even look at anything that had that font on it, pretty much.
It's really funny you say that, but it's actually very true because Drew and I kind of finished Rebels recently.
Yeah.
Which is an amazing show, by the way. But again, at the very end of the day, you're like kind of thinking like all this cool shit leads up to Rise of fucking Skywalker.
Yeah. But hey, still a good podcast. Listen to that. It's a lot of fun. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you at home. Quarantine.
Whoa.
Stay inside.
See you there.
Stay inside and hide.
All right, later,
We'll still
guys.
find you.
Okay.